welcome to the deep dive. We are jumping straight into the core of personal security today. The emergency fund.
Right.
Now, I know what you might be thinking. This sounds like, well, maybe the most tedious part of finance. Least glamorous, anyway.
But if that's how you're looking at it, you are entirely missing the point. I mean, this deep dive isn't really about boring savings.
Okay.
It's about financial resilience. It's about building that foundation that actually buys you genuine mental peace. And our sources today, including some really solid analysis from FINRA, they show us just how high the stakes really are.
And they are alarming. Before all the recent economic turbulence, nearly 4 in 10 U.S. households just didn't have the financial resilience needed.
To handle a sudden crisis, yeah.
Exactly. That's a huge portion of the population sort of walking a financial tightrope.
It really makes financial security an absolute necessity, doesn't it? It's not some luxury just for the wealthy. Our mission here is to uncover what genuine resilience looks like based on the data and, detail the exact steps you need to take to build this fund and critically show you where to keep that cash so it actually works for you while staying safe.
Okay, let's unpack resilience first then.
Mm-hmm.
FINRA mapped this financial readiness thing across, 7 key indicators?
That's right. Things like financial literacy, debt levels, assets.
Right, and they organize people into 4 distinct segments.
Yeah.
And you can immediately see the huge difference in preparedness.
Yeah. On one end, you have the largest group, actually. 37% of respondents, they call them living on the edge.
Yeah.
They score lowest on those resilience indicators, generally lack financial knowledge, have few assets, which means very little emergency savings.
And predictably, I guess, they report high financial anxiety.
Mm-hmm. Around 64%. Very high.
But the segment that really jumps out at me is the paycheck-to-paycheck group. That's 13% of people.
Yeah.
They report the highest anxiety, a staggering 81%. And yet, the data shows 84% of them own a retirement account but have 0 emergency savings. Wait, They're prioritizing market gains over basic security. That sounds like a huge blind spot.
It is. It's this massive paradox we see in the data. I mean, they're doing the right thing for their long-term future, investing for retirement.
Right.
But they're totally neglecting the immediate risk management. It's like building a penthouse on sand, which is exactly why their anxiety is so high if a crisis hits.
They're in trouble.
Exactly. They face ruin despite having those investments.
And then, the top tier, the group you actually want to be in.
Yeah.
The 15% who are standing strong. So what defines them? What are they doing differently?
It's actually pretty straightforward. The definition is simple. 100% financial literacy and 100% have adequate emergency savings. Full stop.
Wow.
They report little debt, low income volatility. When you commit to building this fund, you are actively choosing to move yourself into that most secure tier.
Okay, moving into that tier requires a really clear distinction, right? You can't just use this safety net for anything. We need to nail down what's a true financial emergency.
FEMA defines it quite clearly, actually. They say it's any expense or loss of income you do not plan for.
Okay, unplanned.
Right. So true emergencies are unexpected and essential to life. Think job loss, maybe income interruption. Unplanned major car repairs, like a transmission going out, or unexpected medical bills, or costs after a natural disaster hits your home. Things like that.
But the temptation is always there, isn't it?
Yeah.
To dip into the fund for something convenient. So what should you absolutely not use this safety net for?
Anything predictable or, frankly, optional. You definitely shouldn't use your emergency fund for a planned vacation.
Right.
Or holiday shopping, saving for a down payment on a house, or replacing things that still work but are just old, like, kitchen countertops.
Those are things you budget for separately.
Exactly. You save for those over time. The integrity of the emergency fund, it has to be preserved for those true crises only.
Okay, so if the fund is purely for quick access during a crisis, where do you put the money? It needs to be liquid, secure, but stuffing it under the mattress doesn't help with inflation.
Yeah, the location is paramount. The optimal home right now, generally speaking, is a high-yield savings account, an HYSA.
HYSA.
It satisfies those 2 core needs, security and growth. Your cash is protected because HYSAs are federally insured, usually up to $250,000.
FDIC or NCUA.
Correct. And they're highly liquid.
And when you say highly liquid, explain what that means for someone who might need that cash fast. Like in 48 hours?
It just means the funds are easy to get to, usually through a standard digital bank transfer, an ACH transfer, sometimes even an APM. You can move the money quickly, no penalties.
And the difference in growth compared to a traditional bank?
Yeah.
It's huge, right?
Massive.
It really is. The current national average APY for just a regular savings account is pretty low, like 0.63%.
Yeah, abysmal.
But as of October 2025, these top-tier HYSAs are yielding up to, what, 4.21%?
Exactly. And let's put that into context for a sec. If you have, say, $10,000 saved,
okay,
in a traditional bank, you'd earn maybe $63 in a year. But in one of these top HYSAs, that same $10,000 earns you around $421.
Wow.
That's hundreds of dollars just working for you automatically just because you picked the right account type.
And it's important to note the timing, the economic environment right now. The Federal Reserve recently lowered its benchmark rate. So experts are predicting that these HYSA rates are probably going to fall over the next year or so.
Which means now is a particularly strategic time, really, to open an account. Lock in a high yield before those rates inevitably start to creep down.
Now we get to that sticky question of prioritization, the investment dilemma. I hear the advice, build the emergency fund first. Absolutely.
Great.
But, for someone who gets, say, a 100% employer match on their 401k, isn't pausing that contribution to build up cash and kind of leaving guaranteed free money on the table, doesn't that defy optimizing returns?
That is the toughest mental hurdle for a lot of people. And yeah, technically, you are leaving a match on the table temporarily, but you have to weigh that temporary loss against, well, catastrophic risk.
Okay.
And the math heavily, heavily favors the cash reserve. If you're forced to tap that 401k before age 59 and a half, you face a brutal 10% penalty, plus regular income tax on top.
So pulling out, say, $5,000 for an emergency, you could immediately lose $1,500 right off the top.
Precisely. Gone. And that doesn't even account for what we sometimes call the double punch.
The double punch.
Yeah, job losses often happen at the same time as market crashes, right?
Right.
Recessions. So if you have no cash reserve, you lose your job during a downturn. You're forced to sell your investments when they're already at their lowest point. You lock in massive losses.
Oh my God.
The emergency fund acts like a shield. It protects you from those portfolio losses and the huge anxiety of being unemployed with no fallback.
This priority is so critical that major financial strategies like the Ramsey approach, they actually recommend temporarily pausing really intense debt payoff or even retirement investing, maybe outside of just getting the employer match, to rapidly build or rebuild that 3 to 6 month cash buffer.
Yeah, the security it provides is just non-negotiable. You have to have it first.
These numbers are compelling, for sure, but what does this actually look like when life throws one of those real curveballs? We found a case study, let's call it the triple whammy, that just perfectly illustrates the value of having that cash buffer.
Yeah, this story, it was shared by a Reddit user, and it's so powerful because it really shows how financial disasters often stack up. They don't usually happen in isolation,
Right.
The user talked about how her husband initially resisted the whole emergency fund idea. He preferred relying on credit cards. But she insisted, and they managed to build up a 6-month fund.
Okay, good for her. And then?
And then, in less than a year, bam, they got hit. First, the husband had this acute tooth infection. It needed an ambulance, a hospital stay, surgery. The medical bills were initially over $20,000. They negotiated down, thankfully, but it still left them with $3,500 out of pocket. That's a serious, unexpected expense right there.
Definitely.
But the second hit came fast. The wife quit her $30,000 a year job because of severe anxiety.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so that wiped out a third of their income and added new therapy costs. And then the third whammy.
There's more.
The husband's commission got cut in half because of some disastrous company promotion. It effectively halved their remaining income stream.
So medical debt, loss of one income, huge reduction in the other, all in under 12 months. How did the emergency fund actually change the outcome for them?
It was their bedrock.
Yeah.
Simple as that. The user said it provided just immense peace of mind. Without it, they would have been forced onto those high-interest credit cards.
Yeah, like 20% APR or something awful.
Exactly. 13% to 28% APR is typical, or they would have had to sell those precious retirement investments right when the market might have been down instead.
They borrowed from themselves.
Exactly. They borrowed from their own secure fund, stayed afloat, didn't go into dangerous debt.
That kind of resilience, it must be even more magnified for people in more precarious income situations, like especially the self-employed or gig workers.
Absolutely. Freelancers, they don't have those traditional safety nets, do they? No sick pay, no guaranteed pensions. A staggering 38% of them say inconsistent earnings are their main financial challenge.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So for them, an emergency fund often needs to be bigger, maybe 9 months, even 12 months sometimes, because it has to bridge those low-income seasons or cover really urgent needs like replacing a broken computer when that computer is literally your only way to make money.
Right. Okay, this brings us to the actionable plan then. If you're listening and you're ready to start building your fund or maybe finish it off, what are the core steps to take?
Okay, first step, sizing your fund. The general rule is 3 to 6 months of essential expenses. Keyword, essential.
Right, not just total spending.
No, just the necessities. But you must customize this. If your career is higher risk freelance, commission-based, or if you have dependents or chronic health issues, you should seriously consider aiming higher. 9, maybe even 12 months.
And if you unfortunately have to use the fund, how do you rebuild it quickly? Because that's important too.
Focus on speed and temporary aggressiveness. Like impose a short-term spending freeze, cut out all the non-needs for a bit, streaming, dining out, that kind of stuff.
Okay, tighten the belt.
Exactly. Then boost income rapidly. Maybe a side hustle delivery, tutoring, whatever fits. Or sell unnecessary things you already own. That surplus sofa, old electronics. You treat rebuilding that cash reserve as the #1 temporary financial priority.
Makes sense. Finally, let's circle back to putting it in the right place. When you're shopping for that high-yield savings account, what's the fine print people should really look for?
Yeah, don't just chase the absolute highest APY number you see advertised. Chase the right criteria for you.
Okay, like what?
Check 3 things. First, make absolutely sure there are 0 monthly service fees. Those can totally eat up your earnings, especially if the balance is smaller starting out.
Right, no fees. Got it.
Second, check the minimum balance required to open the account and also the minimum balance required to earn that advertised APY. Sometimes there's a difference.
Can you give an example of that difference?
Sure. Some really great online banks have $0 minimums to open, super accessible, but others, like Abrio Direct was one mentioned, might require a pretty steep $5,000 initial deposit.
Okay, big difference.
Huge. You need the account that fits where you are right now, not just the one with the highest rate on paper. High yield is essential, yes, but easy access and 0 fees are absolutely non-negotiable for an emergency fund.
So wrapping this up, what does this all mean for you, the listener? The emergency fund. It's often seen as this static, maybe boring chore. But this deep dive really proves it's probably the most active, resilient tool you actually have.
It really is. It's the necessary expense that buys you financial security, and it helps you completely avoid that trap of high-interest debt, which, starts costing you maybe 13% to 28% APR the second crisis hits and you reach for a credit card. You're basically buying freedom from creditors.
So here's the final thought to maybe chew on. If 81% of those without a fund are suffering high financial anxiety, perhaps the greatest yield the emergency fund offers isn't really cash or interest. Maybe it's the instant measurable reduction in your daily stress levels.
That peace of mind is priceless.
Exactly. By taking these steps, defining your emergency clearly, sizing your fund appropriately for your life, and securing a good high-yield home for that cash, you are decisively moving yourself into that top 15% of Americans FINRA categorized as standing strong, ready to bounce back from whatever economic turbulence comes your way. That's a really powerful step toward true peace of mind.